Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to look back to the beautiful, legendary actress and singer Dorothy Dandridge life. Let's get started. Dorothy Dandridge has been called the first black movie star. She thrived in the golden age of Hollywood, a time in cinema that was marked by glamorous performers like Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, and Grace Kelly. As described in Donald Bogle's biography, Dorothy Dandridge, she changed how America imagined its Hollywood stars, expanding the definition beyond blonde bombshells. Dorothy Dandridge was born on November 9, 1922 in Cleveland, Ohio. Her mother, Ruby Dandridge, was an actress who left her husband while pregnant with Dorothy. She moved into an apartment with her friend Geneva Williams, who played a key role in teaching Dorothy and her sister singing, dancing, and piano. Dorothy never knew her father. Unfortunately, Dorothy later endured mistreatment at the hands of her mother's friend, Geneva Williams, who was a disciplinarian with a cruel side. Pushed into show business at a young age by her mother, around 1930, Dandridge moved to Los Angeles, California with her family. A few years later, she found success with her new musical group, the Dandridge Sisters, which included Sister Vivian and their friend Etta Jones. The Great Depression halted progress and they moved to Hollywood. The group landed gigs at the famous Cotton Club in Harlem and performed with top acts such as the Jimmy Lunsford Orchestra and Cab Calloway. As an African-American singer, Dandridge confronted early on the segregation and racism of the entertainment industry. She may have been allowed on stage, but in some venues she couldn't eat in the restaurant or use certain facilities because of the color of her skin. After changing their group name and teaming up with the school friend Etta James, the Dandridge Sisters garnered moderate success there before achieving acclaim in New York at the famed Cotton Club and also in Europe.
If you want a Swissy trill, some drill. Oh,
Dandridge's career path had seemingly been designed by Lena Horne, who was also iconic, by the way. But anyway, she created her own legacy by achieving greater, if more brief, success as a movie actress. However, unlike Horne, Dorothy Dandridge succumbed to the depths of Hollywood exploitation. Film studios recognized her considerable acting talents, but, to her detriment, promoted a sultry and sexy persona for her. She lived in an era when black actresses and actors were denied equal footing with leading white actresses and actors, limiting their ability to demonstrate the full dimensions of their acting skills. Before Dorothy Dandridge was 15, she had made her film debut. As described in African American Lives, the Dandridge sisters signed a contract with Warner Brothers to appear in an upcoming film, the Marx Brothers' classic comedy, A Day at the Races. Over the next few years, she would have several more small roles in films, including Going Places, in which she sang with the iconic Louis Armstrong. As noted by biography, while Dorothy Dandridge and her sisters were able to secure roles in films, their scenes were sometimes cut when shown in the South, where audiences were less receptive to seeing black performers. The Nicholas brothers, Fayard Antonio Nicholas, and Harold Lloyd Nicholas are considered two of the greatest tap dancers to ever perform. When they met, Dorothy Dandridge and Harold Nicholas were teenagers, Dorothy being only 14.
It was at rehearsal. And my brother and I, we got there a little late. And so we saw these three girls over there who was known as the Dandridge Sisters. And I'd say to my brother, say, hey, look over there. And he looked and he said, ooh.
The two started a romantic relationship that Dandridge would describe in her autobiography, Everything and Nothing, as puritanical, idyllic, and corny as the stalks in Iowa. The two dated for 4 years, during which Nicholas brought her flowers, took her to the movies, and joined her for long walks. According to Dandridge, the two often held hands and kissed, but nothing more. Backstage, she suffered worse abuse. Geneva Williams was still managing the Dandridge Sisters, and as described in a documentary from Biography, Williams had also noticed the fact that men were attracted to Dorothy. She did everything she could to suppress Dandridge's sexuality. Before performances, Williams would bind Dorothy's chest to attempt to conceal her bust. Williams was extremely controlling, particularly when it came to Dandridge's romantic life. While touring in England, Williams refused to believe that Dandridge was still a virgin without a physical examination, which Williams attempted to violently force on the teenage. Dandridge was able to overpower Williams and knock her to the ground with a punch. Williams would never abuse Dorothy again. After they returned to the United States, Dorothy Dandridge left the trio and began her career as a solo artist. Although she achieved success as an entertainer, the same cannot be said about her personal life. Both of Dandridge's marriages, first to Harold Nicholas. While their marriage was doomed to failure, partially because Nicholas was prone to flings of his own, it was a sound business decision. In 1941, Harold Nicholas secured his fiancée a role in the film Sun Valley Serenade, which some consider her big break. After Dorothy married her fiancé, Harold Nicholas, on September 6, 1942, she had planned on being a full-time wife and mother. Dorothy excelled in every role as a wife. She was a great cook and had an excellent taste for interior design. Harold was a good provider, but his love of golf and other women put a strain on their marriage. The birth of their daughter, Harolyn, brought Dorothy immense joy and a renewed hope in her family. When Harolyn started showing signs of developmental delay, Dorothy was without her husband's support in finding answers from physicians. This was an emotional burden that was way too much for one to handle alone. Harold acknowledged how emotionally draining it was for Dorothy. It was a heavy load I left on her, 'cause for her to be there alone to do all this, that was a heavy toll. Harolyn had severe brain damage and stopped developing at the age of 3. Dorothy always blamed herself for Harolyn's condition and said that was the biggest hurt of her whole life. Dorothy and Harold's marriage continued to be strained, and they were officially divorced in October 1951. Harold had this to say about how he treated Dorothy during their marriage. "I didn't treat her like I should have, as a loving husband should have treated his wife, someone that her cared about and someone that he wanted to be with." After their divorce, Ruby and Geneva looked after Lynn while Dandridge tried to reestablish her career. She still wanted to act in films, but realized that possibility was slim. She did not relish returning to nightclubs, especially in Las Vegas, where racism was almost as bad as in the South. The reviews were very good, which would help her get film work at the Mocambo in Hollywood and numerous guest television appearances. MGM offered and Dorothy accepted a role in an all-black drama called Bright Road. The film opened in April 1953 to good reviews. Her next role as the eponymous lead in Carmen Jones, 1954, a film adaptation of Bizet's opera Carmen that also co-starred Belafonte, catapulted her to the heights of stardom with her sultry looks and flirtatious style. And I hope I'm not the only one who's still obsessed with this movie. Definitely one of the best movies of all time, in my opinion. Although she lost out to Grace Kelly, the country girl, Dandridge seemed well on her way to achieving the level of fame and superstardom enjoyed by white contemporaries like Marilyn Monroe and Ava Gardner. In 1955, she was featured on the cover of Life magazine and was treated like visiting royalty at that year's Cannes Film Festival. However, in the years that followed her success with Carmen Jones, Dandridge had trouble finding film roles that suited her talents. She wanted strong leading roles, but found her opportunities limited because of her race. According to the New York Times, Dandridge once said, "If I were Betty Grable, I could capture the world." Belafonte also addressed this issue, noting that his former co-star was the right person in the right place at the wrong time. With Hollywood filmmakers unable to create a suitable role for the light-skinned Dandridge, they soon reverted to subtly prejudiced visions of interracial romance. She appeared in several poorly received, racially and sexually charged dramas, including Island in the Sun, 1957, also starring Belafonte and Joan Fontaine, and Tamango, 1958. Night, in which she plays the mistress of the captain of an enslaved ship. Among the missed opportunities from this period, Dandridge turned down the supporting role of Tuptim in The King and I, 1956, because she refused to play an enslaved person. It was rumored that she would play Billie Holiday in a film version of the jazz singer's autobiography, Lady Sings the Blues, but it never panned out. Dandridge did appear in one more role worthy of her talents, opposite Sidney Poitier in the Academy Award-winning Porgy, and Bess, 1959. Now let's go back to Carmen Jones. While making Carmen Jones, Dandridge became involved in an affair with the film's director, Otto Preminger, who also directed Porgy and Bess. Their interracial romance, as well as Dandridge's relationships with other white lovers, was frowned upon, particularly by other African American members of the Hollywood filmmaking community. And Preminger, ostensibly her favorite among many white suitors, refused to leave his wife after a 4-year relationship with Dandridge. Even for a man of Preminger's power and stature in Hollywood, a permanent relationship with a black star was too risky. Dandridge endured other trials. Red Scare-era newspaper stories about her political activities restricted her acting career. On the rebound, Dandridge married her second husband, Jack Dennison, in 1959, though that proved to be another troubled relationship. Dennison was abusive and mishandled her money, with Dandridge losing much of her savings to an investment in her husband's failed restaurant. They split in 1962. As her film career and marriage floundered, Dandridge began drinking heavily and taking antidepressants. The threat of bankruptcy and nagging problems with the IRS forced her to resume her nightclub career, but she found only a fraction of her former success. Relegated to second-rate lounges and stage productions, Dandridge's financial situation grew increasingly worse. By 1963, she could no longer afford to pay for her daughter's 24-hour medical care, and Marilyn was placed in a state institution. And guys, I forgot to mention, there was a rumor that Dorothy and her co-star Harry Belafonte also had a fling. Dorothy and I felt a strong mutual attraction, no question about that, but during rehearsals it became clear that no matter what our feelings might be, a romance between us wasn't going to happen. Dorothy's marriage had ended the year before, the latest in a line of abusive relationships for her. She knew how fragile she was. What she needed now was stability, meaning no men if she could help it, and a fierce focus on getting her career back on track. Already, she'd reestablished herself as a singer with a sold-out gig at La Vie en Rose. Now she wanted to conquer Effaly Wood, and to take up with me, 4 years her junior, would lead to nothing but a lot of negative publicity. A romance with Dorothy was the last thing I needed either. My marriage was teetering a bit as Marguerite's and my political differences grew, though I couldn't imagine divorce, so I backed off with some relief, if not also keen regrets. In our few scenes together in Bright Road, that hint of unconsummated desire is all too real, made more so by Dorothy's powerful screen presence. Here was a stunningly gorgeous black woman appearing before the camera, not as a maid or a slave, but as a teacher. Most of America had never seen a black woman, aside from Lena Horne, look both so beautiful and so dignified, he said. But Dorothy's autobiography, on the other hand, says they did have an affair. But anyway, let's get back to the video. After her daughter was placed in an institution, Dandridge soon suffered a nervous breakdown. On September 8, 1965, she was found dead in her Hollywood home at age 42. Initially reported to be the result of an embolism, additional findings pointed to an overdose of an antidepressant. Dandridge had little more than $2 in her bank account at the time of her death. Dandridge's unique and tragic story became the subject of renewed interest in the late 1990s, beginning in 1997 with the release of a biography, Dorothy Dandridge, by Donald Bogle, and a 2-week retrospective at New York City's Film Forum. In 2000, film star Halle Berry won Golden Globe and Emmy Awards for her portrayal of the groundbreaking actress in the acclaimed TV movie Introducing Dorothy Dandridge. And did you know Marilyn Monroe and Dorothy were good friends, according to an article? After Dandridge would finish performing with the Desi Arnaz band in Hollywood, she would call Monroe. They would talk for hours about their career, problems with men, and racism in Hollywood. Dandridge, Monroe, and another black-friendly actress, Ava Gardner, often went to parties together. Monroe and Dandridge also got a kick out of both their first names and last names started with the same initial. Monroe never tried to hide her friendship with Dandridge. It was so unpopular for whites to have black friends during segregation that white media outlets refused to report on their friendship, even if they were peers in the same field. This may be why biographers aren't familiar with their association. Dandridge was also a good friend of actor James Dean. She considered Dean a play brother. Monroe and Dean tried to shield Dandridge from racism. Actor Marlon Brando was extremely attracted to Dorothy Dandridge and shocked an audience when he kissed Dandridge on the mouth during an awards ceremony. Interracial mixing in Hollywood was unheard of in the 1950s and was looked down upon. Ironically, Marilyn Monroe and Dorothy Dandridge would die in a similar fashion. Both died of accidental pill overdoses, and it's no secret that many people believe both of their deaths were very fishy. Hey everyone, that's all for today. If you've made it this far, please consider subscribing. It takes a lot of time to research and edit these videos, so your support means a lot. I'd love to hear your thoughts about Dorothy and any information you have that I didn't cover. Also, if there are other iconic women you'd like me to create videos about, feel free to let me know.
Do you know the lyrics to Julie?
Yes, I think I do.
You do. Oh, fortune smiles upon us tonight. You see, someone was to have sung Julie, which is the third nominated song at this point. Arrangements were made, rehearsals were held, and then at the last minute they decided not to let me do it.
Oh, fortune smiles upon us tonight.
Very good. And so, the spotlight falls on Miss Dorothy Dandridge.